Have you ever seen anime that has fan service? Have you ever seen anime that has parody? Have you ever seen anime that has pretty much just comedy and just objectives? I think this is a perfect anime. I think a lot of people would really want to watch, but I think you're in luck. I think you should watch it. It's called anime. It's called My Mental Choices Are Completely Interfere with My School Romantically. This is a very interesting anime that I have never seen before. This is the very first time I never have seen in such a really long time. I never have seen an anime based like this. It's basically all about a main one character. He basically goes up. He finds something on the ground, and let's just say he finds a dirty magazine. Not just any dirty magazine, a dirty magazine that I can't say in terms because of YouTube and stuff like that, and basic stuff like that. So he was looking at it, and then all of a sudden his mind got brain fried or something like that. His mind got brain fried or something like that and stuff. And then what happened was where you basically get like a biography, like a history lesson through based on time, based on self and stuff like that, and you basically get to understand choices and stuff like that, choices that you make and stuff like that. Choices are basically are deterministic, so basically something that you really definitely do make. Choices that you make that can determine what's going on in the past, what happens in the present, and what happens based into the future. Based on the future, can you stop your future? Can you stop what basically is just going on? You can if you want, because you have the control and the power of your own future, because you have the control. Take back the historical figures when it comes to Elvis, President Washington, or President George W. Bush, or whoever it is, or whatever historical figures, or whatever it is, and stuff like that. And I think it does a really great job showing those political figures or celebrities or whatever it is and stuff like that, or whatever it is, that really basically shows the existence of making choices and basically stuff like that. I think it's very, very important. I think for a lot of people to need to make choices and stuff like that. But I don't think people should not be forced into a situation that you really want to make a choice, or you feel like it's kind of like you're basically like you have like four things or something like that, or your mind just kind of collecting through like what kind of choices that you really do want to make. Take as for instance, for example, if you were to basically that if you have a choice that if you want to watch True Love Real or High School DxD or Sword Art Online or Basis, but what if you opt out and say like, nah, I'm not gonna do it, but and say like then you change your mind, say like, yeah, I am gonna watch it. But if that's the choice that you make, but do you regret making that choice? That's the question. If you do regret making that choice, that means like, yeah, I really do regret making that choice, because that's the choice I don't want to make. That's the choice I really don't want base to have. I think people do have the right to have that choice. When it comes to free will is very important. Stuff like that. If you go back to the Bible, I don't mean to preach or anything like that. I know a lot of you guys don't believe in God and stuff like that. I understand. I respect that really a lot. But I'm just using that for historical value. If you go back into the past, go to the Bible with Adam and Eve, they had a choice. God warned them and told them not to pick the apple from the tree. However, they said that oh, it was the snake that told us to basically do that. However, yes, the snake did tell them to do that, but I would personally say it's not really basically his fault that they told him, but they made that choice. That's how sin into the world, and some people will probably say like God created sin, stuff like that. I don't think so. I really don't think so. That's just personally, my opinion. That's what I definitely think. But it is the free will that we have. If we didn't have that free will, then we would not be making those choices and stuff like that. If I were to make a choice of something that if I were to basically like, I don't know how would I basically or for if I was in that situation and historical, basically in that past, let's say I was Adam, okay, and let's say the woman right next to me, Eve, or whoever it is, or stuff like that, and she goes up the tree, she takes the apple and stuff like that, and maybe I should eat this apple too because it looks delicious and stuff like that. It looks like there's something to eat. But if God told me not to do that, then I would be disobeying God and saying like I shouldn't do that. But I chose to anyways because Eve was saying like, hey, we should eat this because we think it's good because this is what we should do. That's basically what happened because of what Adam and Eve did, because it was the free will of man. It was the free will of man. Now, some people would probably say like, oh, it's God's fault because He made humans because basically of that. It's not necessarily basically just that. I think it was just basically a formation of making that formation to really to see what basically goes on and stuff like that. God didn't force them to make that choice, but God warned them not to do that. They told them not to do that. So that's not really basically His fault, but that was basically their own choice for them to basically do that. So that was their choice to pick the apple from the tree because God warned them, told them not to mess with that tree, not to go there, don't do that. But they say like, oh, it was the snake was supposed to me. It doesn't really matter. You can't blame the snake that talking to you or anything like that, or Satan, whatever you want to say, and you put the blame on the snake. That's not his fault. That is necessarily your fault. That is your fault because that you decide to pick the apple from that tree, and because you did that, because that's the choice that you made. Now you have to pay the consequences for that choice that you make. So I think it's very important. I think when it comes to anime, that it really actually is choices that you really basically that you basically make. When it comes to the main character, it comes to choices of foolish things of basically what he does. It's not just basically because like people are forcing you to make these choices, or basically like your mind just going screwed up and something like that, and say like, oh, I'm just gonna take my shirt off in order to take my pants off, just show everyone and stuff like that. That's if you have the choice, if you really wanted to do that. But to me, I wouldn't do it because it's not. Because for one, because it's not appropriate. For two, people would probably think, oh, this guy's really weird. What the heck is he doing? And number three, probably say, stay away from that guy. Stay away from him. But I'm just using those as an example. I think this anime is very funny. I really definitely do think so, because I want people to really understand here is basically that people do have the free will to choose to go into temptation, or maybe not, or make different choices. We all do face temptations in our lives, we all do, and I think that's very important. I think that some of the choices, but sometimes we don't enter into temptation, but sometimes we do enter the temptation. It's kind of like basically of the hands, basically like you have the right and the left, or or basically would probably say yin and yang, basically the good and the bad, or basically the good and the evil, or God and Satan, or whatever it basically really actually is. It's basically actually is. It's kind of like basically for a terminus of views. Take as for instance, basically like as Tom and Jerry. If you've seen the cartoon of Tom and Jerry, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Where you see Tom, basically the cat, where you have that little devil on your shoulder. But guess what? You have that little angel on your shoulder too. So which one do you listen? Which one do you listen? Which one do you listen? Who should you listen to? But before you make that choice, and you probably will say like, well, that little voice right there on my shoulder told me to. No, this one told me to. No, but it's on you because you made that choice. So that's the choice. That's the choice that you made. That's the choice that you did, and that's the choice that you paid for, and stuff like that. And that's what basically it actually is. I'm addicted to anime and manga and whatever it is, basically stuff like that, and video games and stuff like that. I made my choice. I did, and stuff like that. Do I regret it? No, I don't regret it for whatsoever at all. I enjoy it. I really happen to like it. I happen to definitely like it. I happen to enjoy it. I happen to do. I happen to like it. I think it's really something. It's my choice. But do I choose not to watch it? I can choose not to watch it, but I choose to continue to watch it because I support it, because it's something I really definitely like, because it's a medium that I support, but it's a medium that I choose, that I really want to choose. But will it affect me basically in the future? In a way, I don't think so. I don't think it will affect me in the future, but I think it will basically reflect on my past because of the choices I made. We all do make bad choices. Sometimes we do make good choices. Sometimes we do make bad choices and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, just because today's my birthday, just because I'm 44 years old and stuff like that, I admit of different faults and stuff like that, basically in my life. Rushed into a relationship, basically got married. And to be honest with you, it pretty much it is my fault, but not mostly everything. But I am responsible for the choices I make, and we all have to face that responsibility. We all have to. So I think this is not just as a biography based of a lesson, but I think this is a lesson I think a lot of people should really basically learn and to understand the choices that you make. But I will let the person want to say here, but think about it really, really hard what I'm going to say right here, right now, is that if you was a robot, okay, if you was a robot, that means you would be perfect, okay? Now, some people are arguing with basically of that, because the reason why I'm basically saying that, because a robot would never make mistakes, because you know why? Because they are programmed to be perfect, because they're programmed to train themselves, because we made a program, because we created them. They would not have any understanding of basically how we feel. It means that no feelings, no love, or anything like that. It means they won't be able to eat, they won't be able to go to the bathroom or go to bed or anything like that. But they're trained to do those things. But if you was to basically picture yourself basically being a robot, how would you basically feel? Because you wouldn't feel nothing. A robot has to choose. What the robot has to do. They have to follow their guidelines. They have to follow their instructions. That's what they have to follow. But when it comes to a human, we wouldn't have to worry about being immortal, being perfect, or basically being super popular all around the world, like Taylor Swift or other different celebrities, which they think that they're beautiful, they're famous, they're perfect, they have all the money in the world. They think they have everything for in the world. Do I want to be rich? To be honest with you, no. That's too much power. I can't have that too much power. That's way too much power for me to have. Yes, it feels good to have that. It is. It does feel good to have that, but it's just too much power. It's just too much power. It's just really too much. I'd rather live a poor life because I want to learn from my struggles. I want to gain up to my struggles. That's what I really want to do. I want to basically do it. So I think what in the determinists, what I'm trying to say here is that, and when it comes to determinists as the basis of life, coexist and stuff like that, I think everyone should really make those choices. That's just my opinion. That's what I definitely think. Regardless of what people may think or may say and stuff like that. And I want people to really to understand it, and I want people to really to see, just to see from what I'm saying here, but not just to see from the brighter different things and stuff like that. people are gonna make mistakes. People really actually are. But if you're gonna leave yourself as a robot for the rest of your life, then you're not gonna learn from your mistakes. You're just gonna say like, yeah, I'm just gonna be Mr. Perfect or Mrs. Perfect because I just want to be the next Britney Spears out there, or Taylor Swift, or Paris Hilton, whatever you want, or President Trump, or anything like that. Because they probably will not admit their faults. They probably won't, but they will probably would basically like deep inside in the conscious that they will admit their faults because they know it. They don't want to show that public to the world because they want to hide that. So yeah, that is their choice. So yeah, I think this review is definitely, it's a summary of making choices. I definitely think it really actually is. But yeah, anyways, that's it for this anime review. Tell me what you guys think. Do you guys agree with me? Disagree with me? What are you guys' thoughts and opinions about this anime? Do you guys agree with me with some of the choices that we make, or whatever it is, or anything like that? But yeah, anyways, I'll see you guys there. Take care. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Don't forget to subscribe. Please consider subscribing. Please hit the like button, give me a thumbs up, or give me a thumbs down. It doesn't matter to me. And please leave a comment as well. Anyways, I love you guys. Take care. Have a wonderful day. Take care. God bless. Remember, I love you guys. Please stay safe. And remember, stay blessed. Love you guys. Take care. Bye.